Well, hi, thanks for joining me here in my shop. Hey, let me put something on the bench there. Okay, let me not. Okay, take two. Hey, welcome to my shop here. I'm gonna put something on the bench, and guess what it is? It's that guy again. Okay. Oh my gosh. Does this switch work, yes or no? For crying out loud. How could it not be working? How can I check it without making a big mess of deals here? Jeepers creepers. Well, I can poke through these wires with little pins, hit the conductors and test on those. Why don't we do that? Now, the best I could do is a bunch of thumbtacks. Let's give it a try. Okay, now I must admit something. I noticed a couple of times that I may have missed a conductor here. Before I admit something here, I almost admitted to something. Don't admit. Don't admit until you have to. Okay. Well. Okay, now I can admit to it. I noticed once or twice that this switch was flaky while it was on my bench, and I thought if I pretended hard enough, wait a minute, this may have missed again. No, can't have missed. Okay, let's go another step with it then. I'll cut right through here. It's interesting. I got a partial reading there. That's particularly bad. You want to switch to either work or just not work at all, because the partial working would lead to the switch heating up. Well, whatever Hey, it works. There we go. because of dirt or something that's built up inside here, even though this switch is it's never been installed anywhere, never used. Okay, let me have to dig out. Hey, how you like that? I have to dig out the switch here. Dig out my other switch. Okay, so here's the other one. Now, before I used this switch, I tested it, but clearly I didn't test it enough. Now, one switch is one way, why would the other one be any different? They've been living their lives in the same neighborhood. Son of a gun. Good thing I hung on to these for 25 years, waiting for a chance to use them. Isn't that something? I'm just finding it so hard to believe. But it certainly appears to be what it is. It is garbage. These turned out to be garbage, along with the original one. Well, that's disappointing, but I have many more switches, just a little less suitable. This, see, the original, you know, they look, oh well. Okay, well, let's just keep going. Keep her playing there. Let's take a look at some of the switches I've got, see what we can do. So obviously I'm looking for a similar toggle type switch. I think I put all the toggle switches into another container. Here's a good one to show you. Does anybody know what that is? So there's a possible switch. That's pretty old. A little on the big side. Yeah, this one looks a little too modern. It's a three position switch anyway. Got that hanging out the front. Push button, but you have to hold it. And somewhere I've got a bunch of other switches. Somewhere being the operative term, so I'm going to go hunt down more switches. Well, I didn't find another toggle switch, but I found this, which might be really pretty good actually. It's a rotating switch. It's got the proper ratings on it. Let's give it a go. Doesn't make it to 0. Huh. Okay. Oh. Yeah. I don't think I want to use this switch. This is too flimsy. put a great big wall switch on that radio. How would that be? What to think? I think you can turn this switch backwards, which is kind of weird. It's working pretty good now. There's been a little bit of dust or dirt that's built up in there over the years. Wow, okay, so this is a possibility. I'll leave it at that. But I'm going to look more for a more appropriate switch. Seems pretty good now, actually. Okay. Oh, well, I do have these. I have this guy. This guy's fairly appropriate. It's vintage. Made in USA. Underwriter Labs inspected. Oh, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4 wires off and on. 125 to 250 volts. That's possible. Kind of a big lug. Remember, I had trouble with the space back here. Yeah, I think I'd have bigger trouble with this. Much less trouble with that. That'll fit easy. Then I got this one, but this one's no good because it's 3 position. Totally wrong look. Wouldn't want to put that on that. And that's supposed to be in your 1968 Barracuda. Okay, gotta go looking far and wide for switches. Okay, so I decided I'm going to test this switch a little bit further. I did find some more, but they got big bodies on them which are going to interfere with the prong sticking out. You know, but that would do the trick if it worked. So this one I decided to go further and test it a little more thoroughly. So what I've done is I plugged it into my dim light system. Closing this switch will simply put a short on the dim lights and will make them glow brightly up here. So I want to put some power through this switch a few times and see what happens. Okay, so we'll switch it on here. And you'll just have to listen to the clicks of my hand here. Here we go. And one of the things I can watch for, well, actually once this is shorted, there's not enough power to operate this meter. But I can certainly see this one. This one's dropping right to 0 where I want it. So that's telling me 100% of that voltage is available to go to this plug. No, actually is at this plug right now. Here we are right here. It says right there 125. And when I close it. Okay, so are we seeing anything funny happening here? Can't see that meter up there. This is kind of what I need to do to my ham radio. Can you believe it? I have a Kenwood ham radio. At has a relay in it with contacts that get dirty, and as you change bands, this relay moves. Some bands work, some bands don't. The solution, believe it or not, is to feed a couple of amps back in through the antenna connection, like right into the ham radio, with the ham radio operating in receive mode. Have that current fed in through the antenna, and then switch this relay so the contacts are breaking this huge current, and that apparently cleans them. Now, the same sort of deal here maybe, but I have some trouble believing the cleaning thing. So this switch is working perfectly fine. So I'm waiting for an incident where either this meter doesn't fall all the way to 0 or those lights are half on. How many watts have I got in there? You know what I can do now? I can put a let's pump the load up here. Yeah. Didn't think those light bulbs would be that hot. Okay, so that's a 100 watt light bulb here. And the other bulb is a 60, I'm pretty sure. Let's see. Yeah, 60. So that's 160 watts of power. That's double what this radio draws. Get ready here. They say, everybody back up. Everybody stand back. I got my hand right on the switch that's going to blow up. So now I'm looking at this meter again. Hard to see in the camera now. Well, I'm pretty convinced that switch is good. I don't know what that was. I saw the first couple of operations, a little bit of wonkiness in it, but it sure seems fine now. So let it operate those lights, and see if this gets warm at all. That'll be our final test. So now it's gotten warm from me having my hand on it. 23 degrees. $20. My cat will be here in a moment. 21 degrees. 24. And falling. Guess who's here? My cat is here wondering what is going on. Because the thermometer... What the heck? It's gone cat crazy in here. That's okay. I gotta let those lights run for a bit anyway. Don't jump onto this. This is bad news. Don't jump on it. Okay, how's our 160 watts of light doing here? Okay, anybody want to guess what that just was? Okay, off with the lights. This switch is getting cooler as it sits here. Well, you're going to try again? You know, she is just gangbusters to find out where the light is from this thing. She's looking everywhere for it. Yes, we do play that. We use that thermometer as a cat toy, and I just didn't realize the effective, you know, because it beeps every time you squeeze the trigger. That my cat would soon figure out how that all works. Kitty cat, you're standing here right next to some live wires. You're not now. It's all switched off. Good. Okay, so this switch is going in. The rotating switch is going in. Hopefully, oh my gosh. Just managed to knock almost everything down. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to wire up this switch just like the last one, and I'll put the radio back in the cabinet. I'll let my cat settle down first. Okay, let's solder this guy up here. Should we test it out? Or put the whole thing back together? What do you think? What's the gamble here? Let's put the whole thing back together on the assumption that this will work. I like to live dangerously. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put the radio back in, put it all back together, swallow deeply and turn it on, and see if in fact that doesn't make it work. Great. So I've decided I'm going to make a short antenna lead wire here. So I've got a couple of lugs, a couple of clips, piece of wire. I don't want to make it very long. I don't want it to be the antenna itself. But you know what? Maybe it's going to be that. Maybe it's going to act that way. I left all this wire on it. I was going to make it quite short. But, what's the harm in leaving all this lead wire? I think I'm going to be building a loop antenna for this radio too. I'm not sure of that. If so, then we really want a fairly short lead. And then we'll connect the loop antenna feed wire to here. I think short is better. Yeah, I think short is better. Small is beautiful. Isn't that what they say? Who remembers that book? Now you're all busily typing away your comment back to me. I remember that book. Nobody paid attention to that thing. Small is beautiful. End here. Looks like the winter may be over where I live. Finally. Mind you, the snow is complete. The ground is completely covered with snow. So it looked a little weird at first why I would think that. So let's twist this up. Feed it through the little hole. Okay. Bend it back. Solder that. How do you get these off? This is what I do. Pinch them down until they're open. Grab them with my fingers, but pinch really hard. Okay, if you pinch hard, you can keep it from grabbing your finger. And off it comes. Wasn't that fancy? Just pull this back a little further. Through the hole. Okay. Good show. These are crimp connectors. More commonly used in automobiles. Wow, that was close. I don't think I crimped that at all. I need my more powerful crusher. Bring on the crusher. I've crushed it. Okay. So much for that. I'll try soldering it. Send you a big message about connections that are not soldered. They're just crushed. things that's always freaked me out is all the electrical connections in my house and everybody's house are just wires twisted together. Yeah, there's some that are under screws, but a lot of them, you know, are just wires twisted together with those connectors. That has always freaked me out. How am I going to get that plastic off there? So in the power company I worked for, which was distributing power in the city of Toronto, these big huge cable connections, they were soldered. And it's no small deal soldering something that big. Okay, let's solder those guys. In an electrical distribution system, anywhere, but you can think about a big city using underground power cables. Those cables have splices on them by the thousands. Okay, in a big city, you have thousands and thousands of cable splices. These splices take a man or a woman a day to build. A whole day project making one cable splice. Thousands and thousands of them. And what happens if you do them wrong? If you're a bad splicer, you can work for years making a joint every day, a splice every day, and have them start failing maybe 5 years after you've made them. And it's not just, I'm not just poking at cable splices. This is true of just about anybody doing anything. Sometimes, you know, the stuff doesn't come home to roost right away. Okay, so 5 years later you find out, hey, this isn't so good. Or what if you're using a material in your work and you work away for 5 years making thousands of something, and then you find out this material is no good. You know what? That happens in the auto industry all the time, doesn't it? It's a safety thing to have to recall the car. That's true. Just babbling away here while I do this. Hope I can solder this stuff. Oh yeah. Consequently, I like soldered connections way better. Even though they are supposed to be mechanically sound on their own before you apply the solder. Which I tried to do with these. There we are. So that's a little cord now. Same thing for, oh, I didn't solder those. Boop, 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 boop. When they're soldering these connections, okay, don't picture the cable splicer with a great big soldering iron. Picture him with a pot of molten lead, molten solder, a pot full of it. And that pot is heated up very aggressively, lowered down into the manhole by rope. Down comes a probably 400-degree pot of hot solder, and then with ladles, you dip in with a ladle. You hold the other ladle underneath the thing you're soldering, and you pour the hot solder over it, like this. That's the kind of soldering I'm talking about. That's more solder in one splice than I've used in my entire life here. Yeah, what happens if you spill some solder out of your label, let's say onto the, I gotta hold this here, onto the floor of the manhole? Well, I can tell you, you don't want that to happen. In manholes, floors are dirty and wet. Sometimes they have water pools on them. And splashing 400-degree molten metal into a pool of water at your feet. Not a good idea. You have a spray, a kickback spray. I don't know if that really took there. You get a little explosion when the solder hits the water. Yeah, that's soldered all right. So if you look at any cable splicer's pants, down around his ankles, it'll be full of holes. You can also look at a cable. If somebody says, hey, I make big power cable splices, I do that ladle thing, I do all that, and there's not many people around who do this kind of work, ask them to pull their sleeve up, and you'll almost certainly find burns on their wrist from solder. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to put these back on now. Squeeze, pinch. Okay. Did I only solder one? Oh, I gotta watch it. I'm talking too much. Reminiscing back in the good old days. This would be in the 1980s when I was involved in working manholes and stuff. I was not a splicer. I was in the engineering department, so I didn't do any real work. Just ask the tradespeople. I was the weird guy who showed up from the office every time there was a cable failure. Guys were working fast to restore power, and I was poking around with the blown piece of cable, kind of annoying them a little bit. Here comes that guy from the office again. They're always suspicious of me, because they knew that if it was a cable splice that was blown, that I could finger the splicer, the guy who made it. And yes, I definitely saw lots of splices that had failed. I never once fingered the splicer. It's because I'm a good guy. What I learned, here you go. As a cable splicer, you go out and make a bad splice, it blows up the next day, which happened once in a while. You got a couple of days off from work for that. But if you're an executive and you make a decision that throws away $1.5 million, you get a pat on the back. So maybe you can tell where my allegiances are. It's always that way, isn't it? Okay, so I got ground. Ground should be the white one, I guess. We want this to come out this way. Oh, I could have cut these to fit better up in here, and I didn't. You know, I could have cut one longer than the other one. It's okay. Put a little more slack. Bring this around. Put it in. This is going to be a lot better. And I think was it the long antenna? For some reason, it seemed that my loop antenna worked better on long, so I'll stick it on long for now. Although I would think short would be better. There we go. Okay, now this guy's ready to go back into back in. During the time I worked for that power company, 6 employees were killed on the job. 3 of them were run down by cars. 1 fell off a pole. Another one burned in a vault manhole fire. Last one was run over by a truck inside the big garage in front of his son. I'll say that again. A son watched his father get run over by a huge truck inside the garage at the company I worked at. Yeah, his son was a young worker. His father was close to retirement. Isn't that sad? Tragedies everywhere. I'm sorry to even bring it up. Okay, let's put the radio back in the cabinet and see if that's a tragedy too. Okay, I'm a little bit anxious about this, but I think this radio is ready for testing. Let me turn down the lights a bit so we can see the internal light. That's good. Okay, it's plugged in. The switch must be in the off position. Now I'm going to turn it on. Son of a gun, you better work. Oh! Well, so far, good on the light. Good on We're good on the light here. Turn it up. We're hooked up to my loop antenna. Loop antenna's right here. We're tuned somewhere around 640. I've moved the tuning dial a little bit farther away. Come on, radio. You can do it. Gotta be more than just a light. Okay, let me stick my ears down to the speakers here. You know what? It just takes a long time to warm up. Okay, tuning.
$5,000 cash? A dream bonus game?
Honey, what's going on?
I'm practicing for Wheel of Dreams running every Thursday in April at Casino Woodbine. I mean, a daily ballot starting on the 30th.
Ooh, funny stuff there.
You can also enjoy the Trim Buffet for just $19.95 every Thursday from 4:30.
I don't know what that's all about, but here we are.
If you gamble, play smart. Casino Woodbine. Home for gaming and entertainment. When your driving becomes so mundane that you needed the radio to
A lot of
make it
backlash in
interesting.
that
More
tuning.
interesting? Right now, you're handling one of the most amazing machines ever created. A touch of your foot and 2 tons of metal.
Just ignore that. It's my computer doing that sound.
401. Trust us, there's traffic. Find the FAF Auto dealership at fafauto.com and come fall in love with driving again. FAF, for the love of the road. Who do you think is built to win the NBA playoffs? Text 590-590 your vote and the keyword playoffs for your chance to win a small cup music.
590.
Ready to upgrade your
It's
grill
almost
game?
dead on 590. It's showing 580. That's great.
Their Canadian-made prestige grill line keeps getting better and better year after year.
But let's
Napoleon's gorgeous Oasis outdoor kitchens too.
go to 640.
And head to the barbecue store.
In stores, nor does it include the trading that goes on online, nor does it include the amount of records that are sold at record fairs and record shows. Once again, I figure it's going to be huge, right? Yeah, especially if you're passionate for it. All right, we had one thing we wanted to ask you here. Complicated to get into here. Having this weird rabbit hole to Weird Al. We call that a Weird Al rabbit hole. We were talking here about why a lot of people think Weird Al is Canadian. He's not. Did he spend a lot of time here or something? Why do people always assume he's Canadian? Down in California, which is just east of Compton. and he's, as far as I know, he's always been a California guy. Maybe it's because he plays the accordion, and for whatever reason, the accordion is, like the beaver, identified with some part of Canadian culture. Yeah, but we don't have time to even worry about how that happened, but you're not wrong. John Tory. We're going to let him know I'm talking about. We're going to pass it on. Alan, take care. Have a good one. Alan Cross, wonderful on the edge, and also a Journal of Musical
Yeah, a little touch of tuning.
Check him out there. Ton of fun stuff on his website. Always great to have Alan here on the show. We're going to head into a news break in a couple of minutes. We'll be back after that. The exchange continues on Global News Radio 640 Toronto. If you have knee pain and you're worried about how long it takes to see a specialist, here's good news from Dr. Lou. Working with a knee clinic, Dr. Lou offers immediate referral to the specialist or orthopedic surgeon, and it's covered by OHIP. Call Dr. Lou now at 1-855-55-PRLOU or visit paincarecanada.com. And don't miss the Dr. Payne Show
Screwdriver's not long
every
enough.
Saturday morning at 11. It's pothole season. And potholes, well, potholes are good for nothing.
Okay, tuning.
They sneak up on you before you see them coming, and they can jar your wheels. Even if your wheels are off as little as one. That's all it takes. Thanks, pothole. See your Mopar service expert for a wheel alignment today. That's your Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram dealer. We built it. We know it.
Tuning.
Right now, buy 3 tires and get the 4th one free. At Rona, we're here to take you from
Oh, honey, our backyard.
to
Oh, honey, our backyard.
time to get renovating. This Saturday and Sunday only at Rona. Get 15% off all our in-stock items with
Tuning.
any purchase of $100 or more. And this Thursday to Wednesday, get up to $250 off your purchase of any one of our outdoor sectionals. You won't want to miss this. For all your renovation projects, there's Rona. Offers available in-store and online. Certain conditions apply. The numbers are in, and it's official. Frank Leo has been awarded agent worldwide. Yes, you heard that right. Worldwide. John Oakley here with Mike Stafford. And while Frank has achieved #1 in Canada for transact for several years, now he's been recognized #1 worldwide. Frank Leo sells the average agent 100 to 1. So if you want to work with an agent who guarantees to sell your home, an agent who has buyers lined up, you want Frank Leo, broker at Remax West. Frank provides a total service guarantee in writing. Frank will sell your home at a price and deadline you agree to, or he'll buy it. Call the only agent we would call if either of us wanted to sell our home. Frank Leo at 416-917-5466. That's 416-917-LION. Or online at getleo.com. That's getleo.com. And start packing. Everyone has a dream. Some want a corner office. Others just want their lunches to stop disappearing from the break room. But if your dream is getting a new Civic, then the Honda Dream Garage event can make it happen.
Let's give it a try on a piece of junk wire here.
Sedan with a new lower payment of just $57 weekly at 1.99% and 0 down. So, if you're hungry for a great deal, visit a Honda dealership today. It includes freight and fees for 60 months, taxes extra or AC. See HondaOntario.com. Moving 59, let's take a look at the roads. Chopper traffic is for Harvey Brooker weight loss.
Straight wire. Nothing. Wow, you really need that loop antenna to really make these radio, or you need a proper outdoor wire antenna, not a couple of feet thrown on the basement floor. But anyway, there we go. I think I've hit the end of the road with this guy. Oh, good, the switch worked. Okay, well, thanks so much for watching the whole series, and I've got to get back to the radio that's down here. This one that I laid off so long ago. Or should I bring a totally new guy? Maybe I'll bring a totally new guy in here. There's no rush on this going down on my shelf. But I have another one. I have a Nord Mendy radio to bring in here. I think I'll do that. Okay, so thanks so much for watching the series. I hope you enjoyed that. This was all about, really, at the very start, changing the on-off switch. That, in the end, turned out to be the hardest part of the whole thing. So anyway, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Oh, hold the fort here. I have another loop antenna to try. This is the one I purchased, obviously. I didn't build this. And it doesn't seem to work quite as well as the big loop one, but it might work well enough to be to work well on this radio. So let's give it a try. Oh, the switch worked again. Give it lots of time to warm up. So this one you can plug in a extension wire if you want. That's what I've done. Hooked it up the same way the other antennas were hooked up to loop and that. And this one is also tunable. It has to be tuned. It's not that you can tune it, you must tune it. This would be a good time to have my cup of coffee in here. Okay, so is this the result of the antenna, or am I just too impatient with this radio? Should have started with the other antenna, the one I know was working. I think I'm impatient. Oh no. You know what? This radio's working. Let's keep trying this antenna here.
Come down recently. It's from foreign research. I don't like to develop polls this far after an election. 6 weeks ago, there's a lot that can happen. In fact, right now, it's Ford is making a healthcare-related announcement. We're going to get you some of that information in about 10 minutes. The point is, obviously, there's still a lot of time in this campaign. We're not even officially into the campaign yet. I mean, I know it sounds like we are, given the amount of announcements flying around, but we actually haven't declared officially the start to the election, which is when the gloves will really come off and the spending will start, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But there still is a lot of polling information flying around. And, you know, as makes sense.
Okay, that's fantastic. That's really fantastic. These are inexpensive antennas. This one, there's probably various companies making these. This particular one is made by Techsun, T-E-C-S-U-N, and this is the AN100, tunable medium wave loop antenna. It's made for just AM radio. And although it's plugged in here, if you have a small transistor radio with an internal loop antenna, you just put this near it and get it angled right. I use one of my rotating decks, my rotating turntables. I put the antenna and the radio on it, and then I turn the whole thing around. Works great, especially if you wear headphones. So there you go, anyway. So I'll be telling the owner of this radio that he needs to buy this antenna. And we're good to go. That's fantastic, because wow, how disappointing these things are with wire antennas. Great. Glad I did that. Okay. Now we're officially done on this radio. So once again, thanks so much for watching, and see you when I get the next radio ready.